if you've ever known anybody that's joined a gym with the intention of improving their health for the new year, you'll see that they'll be super, super excited. They're all about it. They're showing up on the regular for the first handful of weeks in the year. And then by the time, like Super Bowl comes around and Mardi Gras comes around, they're completely off the wagon.
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, episode 6, right? Thank you guys for tuning in today for this week's episode. Thank you for continuing to support us here at Path of the Jedi, and yeah, everything, all the feedback I've been hearing from all of you has been incredible. I've gotten a lot of very, very supportive feedback from all of you, constructive feedback from all of you, and I really appreciate it. I can't tell you enough how much it means to me that you guys are listening and continue to listen to Path of the Jedi. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. It's been a fun adventure, and I love doing this. Despite how crazy my schedule is right now. I am currently traveling, so I'm away from my home studio, as it were. I'm back again on the laptop with the earbuds, the corded earbuds. So if there's any kind of sound situation or like hiccups here and there, just understand I don't have the control in with my environment that I usually do back home because I am on the road. But yeah, we just roll with it, right? We just roll with it. The episode from the park, from camping, that I did a few weeks ago turned out pretty well. It turned out pretty well. So I think I think you guys will get a good episode here, despite the fact that I'm not home. And either way, the content I will still do my very, very best to deliver you guys some good content today. So let's kick it off the way we kick off every episode, and that is with news and updates. All right, first piece of news. As of this recording, we are officially at 200 downloads. Yes, that's right, 200 downloads. Our first 5 episodes have reached 200 downloads, guys. Again, I can't thank you all enough for continuing to support Path of the Jedi. It makes me want to work harder and continue to provide great content that will help you guys on your day-to-day journey. So yeah, thank you again. As a kind of corollary to that, actually, things that I'm working on, projects, again, to continue to provide you guys with resources that'll help you on your growth journey, your personal development journey. Lots in the pipeline, guys, lots in the pipeline. Outside of Path of the Jedi, I'm currently exploring and developing ideas for new podcast, perhaps limited series kind of stuff. Again, more material for you guys to help you on your day-to-day journey, and beyond that, programs as well. Working at the moment behind the scenes on just creating more resources for you guys. Some very, very exciting stuff that'll help you continue to develop and grow and create the mindsets that you want to create for yourself so that you can ultimately live the life that you want to live. And for all my network marketing listeners out there, programs for you guys as well, specific to helping you build the network marketing business that you've always wanted to build, right? So again, lots of things in the pipeline, lots of very, very exciting developments. It's going to be all kind of released over time, gradually. It's not all going to happen at once, and different things have different timescales, right, depending on the complexity of the project. But yeah, I mean, it's all really driven by the amazing response I've gotten back as a result of this podcast. So more in the pipeline, guys, more coming for you. Now for some Star Wars news, some very, very exciting Star Wars news. Today marks the premiere of a new series that's happening on Disney Plus called Star Wars Visions. Guys, Star Wars Visions is amazing. Now, if you haven't heard of Star Wars Visions, this is how StarWars.com's website describes it. It's a new anthology of animated shorts celebrating Star Wars through the lens of some of the world's best anime creators. As a fan of anime, I find this incredibly exciting. And from the previews that I've seen, it just looks phenomenal. It goes hand in hand, really. anime being the animation style that has its roots in Japanese culture, I think it really lends itself to the Star Wars universe. I mean, even if you watch the movies, you can draw a lot of parallels between the Jedi and samurai, for example. So I'm incredibly excited for this, and I cannot wait to dive into Star Wars Visions. Again, this will be made available for streaming on the Disney Plus platform. And now it's time for the shout out. All right, this week's shout out is a shout out and a podcast alert, actually. For those of you guys who are looking for a network marketing specific podcast to listen to, please check out my good friend Matt Hall and the Network Marketing Mastery Podcast. Now, Matt and I have known each other for, 4 or 5 years now. Originally connected through the internet, social media, and I've just stayed in touch ever since. He does an amazing job with his podcast and the network marketing trainings that he does. He's a top producer in his company, and he has coached and mentored many top producers in his team. Now, I picked Matt for this week's shout out for a couple of reasons, really. Number one, when I was first tossing around the idea of doing this podcast, Matt was actually one of the people that I reached out to for advice and guidance on putting a podcast together. I mean, Matt has years and years and years of experience in podcast. His podcast, The Network Marketing Mastery, goes back to 2016. So Matt was incredibly gracious in sharing his perspective, his experience, his knowledge on podcasting, and it really helped me get over my jitters and hesitations of kicking off Path of the Jedi. The other reason why I wanted to give a shout out to Matt and his wife, actually Shantae, is that they very recently, within the last month or two, hit their first six-figure month, first six-figure in commissions. So for any of you out there who still have doubts about the network marketing profession and its viability as a career, well, I think these results speak for themselves, and that with determination, consistent hard work, and perseverance, you can really achieve anything that you want to achieve in this profession. So again, congratulations to Matt and Shantae on your recent achievement. I know this is just a stepping stone to even bigger and better things. Again, for those of you guys who are in network marketing, please go check out his podcast, Network Marketing Mastery Podcast.
I'm going in. Cover me, Porkins.
All right, for this week's episode, we're going to switch things up just a little bit. I realize that our last handful of episodes have dove into some pretty big, heavy topics. So today, I'm going to go over some of my favorite quotes and passages from the recent book, Star Wars: High Republic Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. Now, as a reminder, the High Republic series is a series of books and stories that take place 200 or so years prior to Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So for those of you who are just, casual fans of Star Wars, some of the characters and the situations that we bring up in this episode you may not recognize. However, the passages and quotes I'm going to be sharing with you guys today will still serve very many valuable lessons and insights. So let's dive right in. Okay, so the first passage comes from pretty early in the book. And guys, normally I would I would give you page numbers so you could go and reference these passages and quotes for yourself. However, I am reading an ebook. I'm reading the electronic version. And with electronic versions, since you can shrink and expand the text, page numbers don't really count for anything. So I can't give you page numbers. This particular passage does happen in chapter 1. So if you want to go look for it, you can find it there in chapter 1. The passage goes as such. It says, "The mere making of a decision sometimes had as much power as any action. Purpose clarified every move, every thought." All right, so in this part of the book, our main characters have boarded the ship. Well, some of them are Jedi, some of them are not Jedi, but they've boarded the ship and they're about to embark on a journey to the Starlight Beacon. Now, the Starlight Beacon is it's a space station that was built by the Republic way, way, way out in the outer rim, what's known as the frontier part of the galaxy. And so for a lot of our characters, especially our Jedi who have spent most of their time on Coruscant or in the city, the parallel is that that's like our big city here on Earth. This trip to the outer rim, to the frontier, is, figuratively and literally uncharted territory for them. And so in this part of the book, we get a peek into everybody's headspace, right? What everybody is thinking, how everybody is feeling as they set off on this brand new adventure. Now, I love this passage for a lot of reasons. One of them being that it speaks to new adventures, right? And how we might feel about taking on a new goal or a new task, right? Setting a new vision for ourselves. A lot of times there can be hesitation, there can be reticence when faced with making changes in our lives, right? Any changes, because human beings are averse to change. Change means uncertainty, and in the oldest caveman part of our brains, uncertainty means not surviving. However, with change being the only true constant, we have to change, we have to evolve. Otherwise, we risk extinction. And that's what personal development really is, right? It's evolving, changing, and growing yourself. Now, understand, anytime you take on anything new, any new project, any new health regimen, any new business idea, whatever it might be, any new career, right? Anytime you do anything new, there's always going to be that part of you that's hesitant, that's going to ask, well, should I do this? Should I actually go for it? That's normal. That's just that part of you that doesn't like change, right? Old patterns that are there to keep you in certainty. For example, with this podcast, I was on the fence for months before I finally pulled the trigger. There was all kinds of back and forth happening in my head. Should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Is it going to be a waste of time? Is it going to be worth my time? You know what I mean? And what if nobody listens to it, right? Like it was all this stuff that was happening in my head. And in the meantime, absolutely nothing got done. So I decided to just finally do it, right? Regardless of any potential outcomes, I made the decision to make it happen. And the act of making that decision to go for it gives clarity to every step after that, to all the action steps afterwards, right? But it all starts with a decision first. So create a new vision for yourself, create some new goals, and make the decision to make it happen, right? Commit to it. Draw a line in the sand. That's what decision is. It's drawing a line in the sand. If you even just look at the word itself, decision, D means of or from, scission means to cut, right? So when you make a decision, you're really just cutting yourself off from all other options except the one that you choose. Now, another aspect of making a decision to accomplish a new goal or vision for yourself is that you don't just make that decision once. What's going to happen is that decision is, again, going to be challenged on the day-to-day by your old patterns that want to keep you certain, right? That's going to tell you that, hey, it's not going to work. You're not good enough, or, it will feed your brain with all kinds of fears and doubts. So you'll actually have to make the decision over and over again, repeatedly. And that's called making a commitment, right? A repeated decision is making a commitment to seeing it through to the ultimate outcome that you want to achieve. For example, New Year's resolutions. One of the reasons why New Year's resolutions never pan out is because people only make the decision once, on January 1st. If you've ever known anybody that's joined a gym with the intention of improving their health for the new year, you'll see that they'll be super, super excited. They're all about it. They're showing up on the regular for the first handful of weeks in the year. And then by the time, like Super Bowl comes around and Mardi Gras comes around, they're completely off the wagon. It's because they only made the decision once on January 1st and not repeatedly over time. So you have to renew that decision repeatedly, constantly, and that's what it means to make a commitment. And ultimately, that repeated decision, that commitment, what will happen is you'll replace those old habits and patterns that are telling you that you can't do it with new habits and patterns that are telling you not only that you can, but that you will. So if there are things that you want to achieve in your life, some new goals, some new visions, just make a decision and commit to it. See the thing through because, as the quote says, the mere making of a decision sometimes had as much power or has as much power as any action. All right, the next quote comes from chapter 4. And this is actually from the character Leox, who is the captain of the ship that is carrying our merry band of travelers to their next adventure. In this passage, he says, remember, everybody, our perceptions define the reality of the universe. Nothing is even a thing until our thinking makes it so. Right? So I like this quote, and I just love this character, Leox. He's kind of a he's kind of a free spirit type of individual, and so I love getting these sneak peeks into his mindset. For me, this particular passage or this particular quote really just touches back on our Path of the Jedi episode 3, where we were talking about the quote from Qui-Gon Jinn when he said, your focus determines your reality, right? Reality is created by our perception. Reality is created, or our experience of reality is determined by the thoughts we think and the perspective that we have, right? And the meanings that we create in our own minds. So I really love this quote. And then there's another quote that kind of ties into that a couple chapters after, and it's from Leox again. And in the conversation, he was talking to one of the younger members of the crew. Leox says, sometimes we all need a reminder to focus on the good things in life. And that's so important. It's so important a reminder, right? Because our perception becomes our reality, because what we focus on becomes our experience in this life. It's so important to make sure that we're really aware of what we're focusing on, because man, there's so much craziness that can really pull our attention and our focus, and then therefore that becomes our reality. I mean, even just outside of all the crazy current events that's happening around the world, we each go through incredible challenges throughout the course of our lives, and to be able to kind of carry a healthy perspective and a healthy focus, it can really help us live a happier and more balanced life, right? The cup half empty or half full. I choose half full. What's cool is they actually reference this later on in the book through another character, actually, the young Padawan, or the young Jedi in training, named Riath, or Reeth, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I like to say Riath, as in 2 syllables, because Reeth just sounds like wreath. Anyways, in this section of the book, chapter 14, towards the end of chapter 14, our young Jedi was reflecting on his own attitudes, his own mindsets, because by this point they've been thrust into lots of conflict, lots of different challenges. And to be a Padawan is to be on a path of learning and a path of growth. So he was doing kind of this self-assessment, self-check-in, and the passage reads as such. He'd looked too much at the negatives of their situation, not the positives. He ought to have been more like Leox, grateful for the good instead of complaining about the bad. Now, I love this particular passage for a number of reasons, and actually, I didn't realize how much the character of Leox had resonated with me until I looked back at all these different quotes and passages that I highlighted through the story. This one again references, or at least talks about, Leox through the eyes of another character, our young Padawan Rayath. Yeah. Riath had made this observation of Leox that, yeah, he chooses to focus on the good things and not the bad, right? And instead of complaining about the bad things. For me, I'm not a complainer. Right? I find that complaining really doesn't get much done. And so yeah, for me it's all about assessing the situation. If there's things that needs to be fixed or that I can address, then I'll move forward with that data, right? I'll move forward with that information and adjust my course of action, or adjust my activity, right? And this segues beautifully into the next passage, which again revolves around the character of Leox. The passage reads, and there wasn't a damn thing Leox could do about it. He refused to worry about the things he couldn't change, time to concentrate on what he could. Now, if you're looking for this passage, this comes in chapter 22 of the book. And yeah, I mean, again, it ties in with everything that we've been talking about on this episode so far. Generally, when we complain, we're making a comment or sharing an opinion of some external circumstance that we have zero control over, right? Or we're trying to affect change and get those external circumstances or individuals to align with how we think they should be. Again, zero control over any of it. So this passage is guiding us. It's instructing us to let go of those things that we cannot control. Stop giving away your mental and emotional energies to things that you have absolutely no say in. The things that you can control are what you choose to focus on, how you choose to perceive the world, and the meaning that you give to your experiences and the people around you, and the decisions that you make. Ultimately, the only thing that you can control is you. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I actually still have a ton of other quotes and passages from this book that I didn't touch on today. So yeah, I mean, if I did, this episode would end up being like a 2-hour episode. So maybe we'll save that for a future episode. Revisit this book called Star Wars: The High Republic Into the Dark by Claudia Gray. In the meantime, let me know what you think about any of what we discussed today on this episode or any past episodes, right? You can email us your thoughts, or even send an MP3 to info@pathofthejedi.com. I definitely would love to get some MP3 so I can play them on the podcast. And again, please feel free to rate and review the podcast, right? That's going to be really helpful to us here in getting the word out. Now, I did just learn this recently, that rates and reviews really are only available on Apple Podcast. I didn't know that, guys, so sorry for misleading my non-Apple users. But you can still leave your comments and your questions and carry on the discussion on our Facebook. Right, our Facebook page is facebook.com/POTJ podcast, or hit us up on Twitter. It is @POTJ podcast. Oh, and one last thing. If you guys have anybody that you want to give a shout out to on the podcast, please let me know. I would love to give a shout out for you on your behalf. You can send an email to info@pathofthejedi.com. Let me know who you want to give the shout out to and the message that you want to leave for that individual or individuals, and I will promptly read those emails and shout outs on the next podcast, on the next episode. So thank you all again for your patience, and if there are any sound inconsistencies or discrepancies, I am, as I mentioned, traveling, and I will be traveling through, I think, at least the next episode. So yeah, I just appreciate you guys continuing to tune in despite the limitations that I have in my recording ability while I'm on the road. But hey, it's still working out. We're still going to churn them out and still get the episodes out. So make sure to tune in next week, same bat channel, same bat time. I don't know why I said that. This is not even a DC chat. Anyway, take care, be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.